was gonna make a more standard book video, like short books I think you should read, or just like a reading update of the books that I've read. But I've been feeling a kind of way this week, more so than others. I don't know if it's just the state of the world in general, or if it's the end of the year. I know a lot of people between Thanksgiving and Christmas feel like they're waiting, like they have this sense of just like, I'm waiting for Christmas to hit, for New Year's to hit, for the holiday season to be over. But I feel like that now, and it's not even Thanksgiving yet. So I've been thinking about these books more, and I don't really know what to classify them as, to be honest. Books for sensitive people who feel everything very deeply and experience everything very intensely. Books for girls who feel lost. Books for people who feel like time is moving too quickly and you don't know how to keep up. I was listening on like shuffle on Spotify yesterday, and the song Nothing New by Taylor Swift came up, and that song was just like how I was feeling, especially the line, how long will it be cute, all this crying in my room, when you can't blame it on my youth. So that's kind of the vibe that I'm going for in this video. I'm sorry if it's not super well put together. I just kind of felt like this today, so it might be a little bit messier than usual. Not that I think I'm very put together in any of my videos. The first book that I want to chat about is Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen. I read this book last year for the first time, and I fell in love with it. It is definitely one of my favorite books of all time. I just found a tremendous amount of comfort in this book. There's certain thoughts and feelings that Emily Austen represents in this novel, and realizing other people feel that way and how common that actually is really affected me, really moved me, and I just was absolutely blown away. When I first read it, I checked it out from the library, so I didn't like annotate my copy or anything. I just bought this one on eBay a few weeks ago, and I really want to reread this so that I can annotate it and like experience it more fully. Follows a young woman named Gilda. She is an atheist lesbian. She's incredibly anxious. She finds a flyer for free therapy sessions, and when she actually shows up, it turns out to be a Catholic church who's just promoting themselves. When she goes into the church, they mistake her as an applicant for their new receptionist position, and she's too socially awkward to correct them. She just ends up taking the position. It is extremely funny. There's a lot of scenes of her reacting to standard things that happen in the Catholic Church, like during Mass and prayers that happen, and she's like confused and questioning them because she's never done it before. She is often worried about being found out as being a lesbian at this Catholic church. I think that she is a main character who feels things very, very deeply. I think this is a good example of the type of modern novels that I really like. The ones that really speak to me are the ones that really showcase modern problems in the modern world, like what young people are experiencing and their struggles. Eleanor keeps texting me. I don't feel comfortable responding at work because I'm worried Jeff and the Catholics will be able to sense that I am doing something gay. I wonder if anyone has ever died looking at this ceiling. I wonder if I will die looking at this ceiling. One day I'm going to die, my internal dialogue asserts. That reality reverberates in my skull like a shriek in a cave. I am going to experience whatever it feels like for my life force to finish. Face it, whatever animates my body will stop. Black, nothing. That isn't just some alarming, scary movie fear. It's true. People will have to deal with my corpse. Just really beautiful. I can't recommend this book enough. The next book is The Awakening by Chopin. So this is more of a classic. It was published in 1899, actually. And it was actually banned when it was first published because it follows a woman who is unhappy in her marriage and in her life, and by societal bounds, and she begins a love affair with a man. I feel like this book ends up often being just the novel about the affair. But I really feel like that's just one piece of it, and the story doesn't focus so much on the affair, but more on the main character herself. This book was so controversial when it first came out that it actually ruined Chopin's career, and I don't think she wrote anything else. Nothing that she wrote was published again after this. Yeah, so it focuses very deeply on the main character. She has 2 children that she keeps at quite a distance. You just follow her being very dispassionate about her life. Her husband is quite wealthy, so they run in like more of an upper class society, and so the rules in which they interact with other people within their society are quite strict. Her husband is constantly asking her to abide by the rules by like setting up dinner parties or calling on certain people or sitting in the parlor and waiting for people to call upon her. And he's mostly looking at it from a perspective of like outward appearance and looking wealthy and clean to their other members of society, whereas she just doesn't understand why everybody acts the way that they do. You watch her be very melancholy, very reserved, very emotionally guarded and cut off from the world. And her struggle with trying to find meaning in her life and to figure out like what she wants to do on a day-to-day basis with her life. The writing is really fantastic. It honestly felt very atmospheric as well. It takes place in Louisiana, on the beach, so there's lots of coastal imagery, lots of water and seagulls and other imagery that's very beautiful. It was a large, beautiful room, rich and picturesque in the soft, dim light which the maid had turned low. She went and stood at an open window and looked out upon the deep tangle of the garden below. All the mystery and witchery of the night seemed to have gathered there amid the perfumes and the dusky and tortuous outlines of flowers and foliage. She was seeking herself and finding herself in just such sweet half-darkness which met her moods. But the voices were not soothing that came to her from the darkness and the sky above and the stars. They jeered and sounded mournful notes without promise, devoid even of hope. Next book is Foster by Claire Keegan. This is a little bit different than the other novels because I feel like it's a little bit more heartwarming, a little less sad. It takes place in Ireland, and it follows a young girl who her parents are expecting a new child. Her mother is pregnant, and they already have a large number of kids. And so to ease the burden on the mother, they send the girl to this other couple's house to stay with them. While she's there, She finds a lot of comfort and warmth in the foster's parents' home, unlike she experienced at home. You see her come to understand them and them come to understand her in a very sweet and delicate way. The writing is quite sparse. I feel like you have to really dig deep into the writing in order to understand and feel the most about it. But it's just very beautiful. Next, I'm going to talk about Stoner by John Williams. I read this book recently and I just absolutely adored it in a way I was completely not expecting to. I thought this book was going to be boring, but it's not boring at all. It's beautiful. It follows a man named William Stoner. He is from Missouri, born at the start of the 1900s. His parents are farmers, and they managed to send him to the University of Missouri to study farming. But while he's there, he ends up becoming enraptured by literature, and he changes his major, studies literature, and stays at the university to become a professor. You just follow this one man's life. It's elegant and sad, but just stunning, and really, really made me think and feel a lot. The writing is really, really gorgeous. I was constantly underlining in this book. It really made the novel just absolutely exceptional. Just the first line. William Stoner entered the University of Missouri as a freshman in the year 1910 at the age of 19. 8 years later, during the height of World War I, he received his Doctor of Philosophy degree and accepted an instructorship at the same university, where he taught until his death in 1956. He did not rise above the rank of assistant professor, and few students remembered him with any sharpness after they had taken his courses. Dive so deeply into his life, into the way he thinks. It's quite a lonely book. He is very alone. He's also quite an inactive character, and so you feel very strangely because you want him to take charge of his life, take command of his life, but you kind of get to understand him deeply and what motivates him most in his life, what he wants out of his life. And it kind of raises a lot of questions about, like, what is the meaning of life? Living a meaningful life even when others aren't around to watch it. Sometimes, immersed in his books, there would come to him the awareness of all that he did not know, of all that he had not read, and the serenity for which he labored was shattered, as he realized the little time he had in life to read so much, to learn what he had to know. A deeply academic novel. It takes place largely on campus, and him teaching and his passion for gaining knowledge for the sake of gaining knowledge. Lots of beautiful atmosphere as well. William felt his love for her grip his throat. This is definitely one of my favorite books that I've read so far this year, and I would recommend it to everybody. I think everybody should pick up this book. The next book I'll talk about is Blue Nights by Joan Didion. This is an essay collection that Didion wrote later in her life after her husband and her daughter died. They both died within a few months of each other. And it's her meditating on memory, on grief, on family, and getting older. She talks a lot about the houses that she occupied, the things that she keeps, and the memories that are tied to those objects. She really thinks a lot about her relationship with her daughter. Her daughter was adopted, and so she discusses kind of the process of adopting her, what kind of challenges and things came with that adoption and her relationship with her daughter. The brutal, heartbreaking sadness that it is to lose a child, to lose her husband, and to feel so alone, especially as she ages and kind of loses more and more control over her life. There comes a point, I told myself, at which a family is, for better or for worse, finished. Yes, I just told you, of course I had considered this possibility. Accepting it would be something else. I really love Didion's writing. I think if you're not an essay person and you prefer fiction, Play It As It Lays is her novel. I think that would also very much fit the vibe of this video. I don't have the book with me. I didn't discuss it because I read it a while ago and I don't have the best memory of it, but it follows a young woman in LA who is also feeling very lost and melancholic and kind of drives around LA feeling numb. So that's another recommendation. And then the next book is Shame by Annie Ernaux, which is translated from the French by Tanya Leslie. Annie Ernaux writes these kind of thematic books about her life. They're kind of a blend of fiction and memoir. She also writes a lot about memory and the difficulty in recalling details and what you associate with certain objects and what you can remember about a certain event and what you can't remember about certain events. She starts this book off with a particularly traumatic event in her life. The first line is, "My father tried to kill my mother one Sunday in June in the early afternoon." And I think reflecting on that memory causes a cascade of other feelings and memories to rise, and she connects them all through the topic of shame and the different ways in her life that she has felt shame and how it is kind of ingrained into her being. Her parents' tumultuous relationship and the abuse that occurred, religion. She grew up Catholic and went to Catholic school. Being young, being a woman, all of these things kind of turn in on her. This is such a short novel, but it's a very reflective and thought-provoking piece. I really felt so much while I was reading it and spent days, weeks thinking about it afterwards. I'd like to read a line I haven't already read. "There is no point in going on. My shame was followed by more shame, only to be followed by more shame. Now everything in our life is synonymous with shame." The urinal in the courtyard, the shared bedroom, owing to a common rural practice and the lack of space, I slept in my parents' bed. My mother's violent behavior and crude language, the drunken customers, and the families who bought on credit. After evoking the images I have of that summer, I feel inclined to write, "Then I discovered that," or "Then I realized that." Words implying a clear perception of the events one has lived through, but in my case, there is no understanding. Only this feeling of shame that has fossilized these images and stripped them of meaning. The fact that I experienced such inertia and nothingness is something that cannot be denied. It is the ultimate truth. It is the bond between the little girl of 1952 and the woman who was writing this manuscript. I mean, holy shit. That line and how, your perception of events can warp what actually happened. And two people can have the same exact experience or have the same conversation, but they'll feel wildly different about it based on their own internalized feelings. The next two books that I have are not recommendations because I haven't finished them, but they are books that I have picked up while I'm in this mood. The first one is a collection of poetry. It's Ariel by Sylvia Plath. I read The Bell Jar a while ago. I would also recommend that for this kind of vibe. Though they're very different novels, I think The Awakening has a similar kind of numbness, emotionally drained woman that The Bell Jar has. But anyways, Ariel is a collection of poetry Plath wrote throughout her life? Question mark. It was published posthumously, which is interesting. And I don't know if there's a clear theme to it. The ones that I have read so far seem to really just revolve around her depression, her wanting to die, and time she spent in the hospital. I will say a number of the poems went over my head. I'm not a poetry person. This is probably the second collection of poetry I've ever read in my life, so I'm not any sort of authority on poetry. There's a few very, very pretty lines, though. This one is from Lady Lazarus, which is one I enjoyed. Dying is an art. Like everything else, I do it exceptionally well. I do it so it feels like hell. I do it so it feels real. I guess you could say I've a call. Beware, beware. Out of the ash I rise with my red hair, and I eat men like air. The other poem that I really loved is called Tulips. I'd recommend that one. This one is from one called Elm. I am terrified by this dark thing that sleeps in me. All day I feel its soft, feathery turnings, its malignity. The one that I picked up today is Good Morning Midnight by Rhys. This was published in the 30s. It takes place in the 30s, at least. It follows a woman who is in Paris. It's clear she's trying to escape something or forget about something. But I at least have not found out what it is yet. She is extremely sad and trying to not dwell on it. Writing in this is very, very interesting. I feel like it's a very stream of consciousness narrative without being incredibly bogged down. She kind of flips from thought to thought, from scene to scene. She's constantly repeating sentences or just like trying to like remind herself of things so that they stick in her head. And so I feel like you're very, very deep into this character's thoughts and feelings. I have been here 5 days. I have decided on a place to eat in at midday, a place to eat in at night, a place to have my drink in after dinner. I have arranged my little life. The place to have my drink in after dinner. Wait, I must be careful about that. These things are very important. Last night, for instance. Last night was a catastrophe. So yeah, I'm just at the very, very beginning of this book, but I'm quite enjoying it so far. That is my stack of books. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry for this kind of messier style video. But I can tell you that if these books are your vibe or this feeling is your vibe, you have found the right place. I just wanted to say thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'm wishing everybody the best reading ahead and that we can all get through the end of this year peacefully and happily. So yeah, thank you so much. Bye.